Hello, everybody. Welcome to the music rating, ranking, and reviewing podcast we like to call Music Meltdown, which we rate, rank, and review any artist's discography, songs, musical topics. Really, whatever comes to mind. This episode's a big one, talking about, at this point, probably one of my favorite bands out there, going to be Fleetwood Mac. Band that you really can't classify under anything because they just really did any and everything with like 80 different people. At their core, though, bit of a pop rock band, has some slight folky elements to them. At their start, we're a bit of a blues group. Fortunately, they made music after 1987, but we can talk about that later. That being said, I knew everything going into this. Big Fleetwood Mac fan. Their stock's only risen for me since doing this. Pretty much sped through the whole catalog within a couple of days. So, Rupert, how are you feeling about Fleetwood Mac?
Yeah, really super positive. Always been a band that I grew up with, specifically Buckingham Nicks and Peter Green era. I think I did one trawl through the Listo discography quite a while ago. But yeah, to be honest, like the late era, the 70 to 75 stretch, I'm honestly not quite as familiar with. But yeah, overall, really positive trawl.
Nice. Here we're just going to kick into this 17 records. So with that being said, let's just get right in. We're going to do bottom 4, then 3, then top 10 one at a time. I feel like everybody has one Fleetwood Mac record at the bottom. I'm not quite going with that one. I have that one slightly higher. The bottom for me, though, is the one that came just before it. I have Behind the Mask. I don't like this record much at all. I had it at 1.5 stars whenever I first went through it. I bumped it up slightly to 2 because I don't think it's that bad, but it's still pretty lousy. Rick Vito and Billy Burnett are nothing. I don't think Christine or Stevie are bringing their A-plus material on here. And the production on this one, you always hear how bad the production is on Time. I think that record sounds fine. It's contemporary, sort of pop, country rock of the time is what it is. This record just sounds dated beyond belief. I cannot stand the synth sound across most of these songs. And I don't know the exact track, but there's one where they're doing like this heavy country influence. It's one of the males singing it as well, and it is just the worst song in their catalog to me. Really dreadful stuff. 2 stars for Behind the Mask. And just up from there, don't know how people are going to feel about this one. I think it's a pretty noticeable step down from the debut. I'm going Mr. Wonderful. About 2.5 stars, though. I'll bring up the thing that everybody brings up. 4 or 5 of these tracks literally have the exact same guitar riff just to start out the song. What are you doing, guys? I know this is like kind of a lazier take on the debut, but write a different lick. It's fine. It's sort of generic blues by numbers, which is a shame because I love Jeremy Spencer and Peter Green as players, and I think they both have really good voices too. But it's none of the songs on here really do much for me. Pretty substandard blues. If you like blues, listen to it. If you aren't the biggest blues fan, just listen to the debut instead. 2.5 stars for Mr. Wonderful. This is when I now talk about Time, often regarded as the worst one. I don't think it's that bad. I have Time at 2.5 stars. I actually do quite like Hollywood. I think that is genuinely a pretty good song. Christine having a really strong vocal performance on there. But I mean, there's really just not much to talk about. It's kind of generic, sort of bland country pop sort of deal. Dave Mason of Traffic is on here, and he does nothing. I'm not the biggest Traffic fan, but you would expect him to have more pull than just being like Burnett or Vito. And the closer, These Strange Times of Fleetwood doing like this weird spoken word and sort of tribal drum rhythms or whatever. It's just really bizarre. I don't hate it for what it's worth, but it's just very strange that it made it onto a Fleetwood Mac record. And then at the bottom for me of this batch, 2.5 stars going to be Say You Will. This is an album entirely ruined by its production. It is really awful stuff. It sounds incredibly cheesy for the time. And Lindsey Buckingham's guitar tone on this record is awful. I don't know what they did to sort of tune it how it is, but it's so just crushingly loud for a Fleetwood Mac record. It just sounds really choppy to me a lot of the time. There's some pretty decent tracks on here. Notably, I really like the title track, and near the end, Destiny Rules, I think is great. But on the whole, I think it's definitely hurt by its length. It's longer than Tusk, and it has about one third the amount of good songs that Tusk has. And neither one of Stevie Nicks or Lindsey Buckingham are at their peaks vocally. So that one, I was close to 3 stars, but I'm still at 2.5 for it. Say You Will, my number, I think, 14. And there's my bottom 4.
Nice, nice. I think we'll have a lot of crossover. My rock bottom album is going to be, I think, the traditional pick. It's Time. For me, it's probably the most removed from anything that resembles Fleetwood Mac. In that they bring in, two kind of like random like people to replace Stevie Nicks, in Becca Bramlett, and Dave Mason, who I still can't really remember on the record. He doesn't really make any kind of strong impression. It's just a very bland, really overlong. Christine McVie's like checked out. Her songs don't make a big impression. And I really wanted to like Becca Bramlett because she's got like a cool like lineage, with good rock history, being like the kid of Bonnie Bramlett. But she actually sings like some of the most atrociously like dull songs to ever like crop up in their discography. It's not so bad to begin with, but there's one track in particular, Dream in the Dream, which is so like turgid, it just like knocks me out into sleep. And it's a rubbish record. And the only other notable highlight is the very end, which has Mick Fleetwood doing that spoken word moody blues poetry thing. And that's still pretty corny. It's a worst record by a country mile. Next, 16th place. It's a tough one. I have to go with Say You Will. For me, it's almost, in fact, it's longer than like Time. It's an even more challenging record to pummel yourself through, because the production is like early noughties. It's so harsh and bright, and sometimes they do lo-fi songs which sound like complete garbage. I think is it Red Rover? Hard to listen to. The second track's this like guitar storm. It's just too show offy. It's hard. There's this like song, I think, I have to get the titles because I don't remember any of these songs. They're mostly quite lousy. There's one track in particular which is about 6 minutes. It's called Come. It feels like 15 minutes. It's so like overbearingly epic. It is one of those like 75-minute albums that could have been good if it was chopped down to 40 minutes. Having said that, there are some good, like almost classic sounding songs on here, mainly delivered by Stevie Nicks. Thrown Down, I think, is really solid Stevie tune. Almost sounds like a song that she could have written for Tango in the Night. Say You Will is also quite uplifting. I like the kind of children's choir towards the end. There are a couple of okay ones like in the middle of the pack. You could have lopped off the final like bunch of songs though. It's overlong, harsh sounding. It's not an album I ever want to check out again from beginning to end. So just move on. My 15th place. These records are all like two-star albums, by the way. My 15th place is Heroes Are Hard to Find. And for me, that is a complete mess of a record. I hate the way the first track sounds, don't like the horns on it. It's a Christine McVie song, but like a pretty average one. It's just a bit too like forceful, like phony and like uplifting, but doesn't succeed. it's just the horn sound that ruins it for me. And the rest of the album is just so murky sounding. It's a mess. I don't think Bob Welch is really on form. And yeah, it seems like a dark like year for the group. They seem a bit all at sea. The only bright spot on it is Silver Heels in the second half. That's a real like diamond of a melody. Really good performance. Other than that, yeah, it's just a mess. And the 14th album to fill out my bottom four. So the 14th, the best of this bad bunch is Mr. Wonderful, right near the beginning. I quite like the blues sound. This is, I think, the original lineup. So it's about as classic lineup as you can get for Peter Green era. But the album itself is it's quite tight and punchy, but it's really derivative, and it gets old pretty quickly. There's one like song that I just love of this, which is Rowan Man. Really just so repetitively blues, but it just drills into your brain. I like the vocal performance from Peter Green, like the licks in it. Can't get enough on it, but it's on most of their best ofs anyway. It just gets a bit old quite quickly, this particular album, which is why even though it's not too far off, I'd say other like maybe their debut, it's just the fact there aren't as many like individual highlights for me on this that keep it down. So that's my bottom four.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Half stars for Mr. Wonderful, by the way.
All right. One pretty massive disagreement there, but past that, we're seeing fairly similarly on these records. At number 13 for me, I have Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac. And I'm skipping right over 3. I'm going straight into 3.5. So 13 good Fleetwood Mac albums. And yeah, this is just a pretty good blues rock record. It's definitely occupying that weird space, like in between classic blues when you get like Zeppelin and people start really electrifying up the blues. And I think at Peter Green, he's one of my all-time favorite guitar players. I think Jeremy Spencer is great as well. And there's just some really great tracks on here. I like Merry Go Round a good bit. Shake Your Moneymaker is pretty fun. And I really like the stretch of No Place to Go, My Baby's Good to Me, and I Loved Another Woman. Really, there's nothing too crazy to say about this one. It's just a fairly solid blues record front to back with one of my favorite guitar players on it. So it'd be number 13. Number 12, this is one of the albums that probably fell the most for me. Still at 3.5, I still do like it a fair bit. It's going to be Kiln House. This is also a weird album. It's right after Peter Green left, but it's before you formally get Bob Welch joining the band. So it's in this weird space with Jeremy Spencer kind of being the front man of the group. And I love Jeremy Spencer's slide playing. Not as big a fan of his cult personality, but I mean, it is what it is. And the songs here are oftentimes pretty good. Station Man, I think, is really cool. I love Hi Ho Silver. Earl Grey in the back half, I think, is very strong, and I like One Together. It's got kind of like a hodgepodge approach, though, and I feel like Kerwin and Jeremy Spencer don't necessarily come together that greatly. And Christine McVie probably could have been utilized a bit more as she formally joins the band on this record, I believe. So it is what it is. Still a pretty good album. And then going just up from here, it's going to be my number 11, the one that just misses. I got Penguin. Penguin is a fucking weird album. This is right after Kerwin is fired from Bear Trees, I believe. And you get Bob Weston and other guy joining, who I already forgot his name. And they can't replace Kerwin. However, I think it's still really interesting because you have sort of Welch kind of taking over the leading role in the band and sort of songwriting and performances, And you can tell everything is shifting to even more of a pop direction here. And you got these really cool, slight jazzy sections via Welch and soulful influences, but you still have Christine pumping out brilliant pop songs. The real highlight here is second to last track, Night Watch, which I think is just incredible. And I also think Dissatisfied is really great in the front half. Um, Peter Green comes back for a solo or whatever on this album. I love Peter Green, but it's kind of not that noteworthy, all things considered. I still think this is a good album, but it's really inconsistent. I'm a Roadrunner is fine. Don't really care for Revelation that much. It kind of closes on a whimper with Caught in the Rain for me. But the highs of highs are very strong. Had me consider putting it to 4 at one point, but I'm at 3.5. Still like it a lot because I like Fleetwood Mac a lot. It's going to be my number 11 Penguin.
Nice. All right, my number 13 is going to be, following on from Mr. Wonderful, it'll be Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac, their debut, which it was really a complete like toss up between that and Mr. Wonderful. But I think the debut packs a few more like notable highlights. I really like Jeremy Spencer's slide playing, like straight from the beginning with Heartbeat Like a Hammer. He's probably like, I think even with Peter Green's name on it, he's kind of like the star man of that. It's probably the one album where I actually tolerate, appreciate his playing. But even though it's got like really authentic, like bluesy moments on it, as an overall package, it's kind of like sloppy. I don't really like all of the like session chatter. They're trying to make it sound like bluesy and authentic, but it's just a bit like I'd rather just listen to like straight up like polished studio cuts without the chatter. And yeah, to be honest, the material at this stage is still quite derivative. It's not the best showcase for Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac, and yeah, all the like great moments on this, like the Show Your Money Maker, really rollicking song. I loved Another Woman, which is too similar to Black Magic Woman, to be honest, for it to be like a highlight for me. Those songs are still better off enjoyed on like actual best ofs, so it's not too much reason for me to go back to this particular album so much. It's kind of like, I guess, kind of redundant almost, kind of not an essential like debut, which is why it's 13th. I'd say 3-star, like lowest 3 stars. 12th place for me is Kiln House. Like as an album, it's got more appeal, it's got more draw because it's really unique for them. Really transitionary album for them in between, right after Peter Green quit, right before Christine McVie joins, Jeremy Spencer and Danny Cohen doing their kind of like partnership here. I can't stand the Jeremy Spencer songs. I hate the hokey 50s like pastiche of rock and roll. And yeah, I find him really annoying on this record. Don't like the opener. Don't like the Buddy Holly knockoffs. Cohen's got some good moments, like Station Man. It's got that kind of rootsy late 60s Rolling Stone thing. And some of the playing is quite good in the second half, but the 50s like rock and roll knockoffs sink this album. So it's got more like stuff going for it that's interesting to check out, but it's still like, yeah, got too many problems with it for me. So it's number 12, 3-star, firm 3-star. And my number 11th is Future Games, which is the first one with Bob Welsh, and Christine McVie is an official member. For me, it's just a kind of it's a nice sounding record, but just forgettable from a songwriting point of view. Future Games, 7 minute long title track is the first one that I noticed, only because of the song's length. It kind of bubbles away. They're quite nice, not epic, but like just bubbles away. The back half for me is a bit livelier. There's some like nice songs which are a bit more exciting, engaging, but still not particularly stand out compared to the rest of like what they produce later. So it's just a kind of nice, average sounding album, not even good enough to make my top 10. Another 3-star album.
Ooh, interesting. Having Penguin above that is the main thing I'm curious about there, but I figure we'll get to that one soon. Talking about records that came later, I'm going to the latest album still in rotation for me. Number 10, I have Tango In The Night, which I think is good. I'm still at 3.5. This is my last 3.5, so I have 9 Fleetwood Mac records, 4 stars or higher. And I kind of struggle with this one. I don't love the opener, Big Love. I think it's solid, but I think that is kind of too big for me. But I love Seven Wonders Everywhere. I think Caroline is the track that really stuck out to me this go around. Love that song. Title track as well is great. And Little Lies is one of the best songs Christine did in the entire Buckingham Nicks era. So good. I think Family Man's pretty good as well. And Isn't It Midnight? The issue is the rest of the songs really do nothing for me. Notably Mystified, which I think is a great vocal performance, but the track just slugs along. It just doesn't really go anywhere. And I think it really also closes on a bit of a wishy-washy note with When I See You Again and You and I Part 2, both kind of just being all right tracks. And I like the production on this one. I think it's very clean, very polished, very 80s. But I don't know, just something about this record in comparison to the other Buckingham Nicks ones, obviously disregarding Say You Will, doesn't quite pull me in as much. I think probably because this started out as more of a Lindsey Buckingham record and Stevie Nicks was barely there. It kind of feels a bit tossed together, like a fair bit of their records, which is kind of the issue I have with Fleetwood Mac is I love their albums a lot, but I don't think that they're the greatest at sequencing records. I think that a lot of their albums kind of toss you around a bit, and you'll see that on the top of my list, which is the main reason I don't get to 5 stars on Fleetwood Mac. It's because I feel like some of their records feel a bit tossed off in the sort of execution of them. The songs are great. Tons of amazing stuff on Tango in the Night. Number 10, 3.5 stars. Like it a lot.
Nice. I have to say, Caroline for me is a huge tune, and it's one of the like songs in this re-listen that have really like stuck in my mind a lot. Yeah, my 10th place, going in at a still at a kind of 3-star territory, is Bare Trees. So the follow-on from Future Games. It's a really high 3 stars, almost 3.5, except I can't honestly call any song a particular fave. I will say that it feels a bit more shored up and solid compared to Future Games. I think each of the songwriters it's just kind of gelling a bit. The songs feel a bit more distinguished. The opener, I'm not really a fan of the vocals because they're kind of a bit too plain and boring sounding, but the music is somewhat driving. Ghost, the second track by Bob Walsh, is my favorite of his on that one, even above something like Sophisticated Lady, which I find like comparatively a bit more annoying with the rhymes. Yeah, it just feels a bit more like higher quality, like the playing on it is a bit more distinct. Some nice tracks while it's on. The last track with the kind of spoken word, with the old lady reciting the poetry, is pretty interesting. Gives a nice little stark kind of ending to the record. and I have to look it up, but it's based on a poem by someone called, the final song's based on a poem by Rupert Brooks, which I thought was, well, I quite liked. I quite like the song just for the fact, to be honest. It feels like a more energized record than Future Games, which was quite flat for me. But not a fave. Definitely not a fave. They're kind of working towards greatness, but not really near greatness at all. And Danny Cohen is like a troublesome songwriter because I find his singing just a bit too weak, and none of his songs especially stand out for me. Even though his playing, like his textures are often like magnificent. I'm just not a huge fan of his particular songwriting style. So that's my 10th place at very high 3 stars.
To piggyback off what you're saying about Kerwin here, I do agree with a lot of what you're saying. I feel like his songs oftentimes are the weaker ones on the records, except for Them Play On, where I think that he equals Green pretty clearly. And he's definitely the weakest vocally of that era. Hell, I'd probably take like a Bob Weston's voice over Kerwin's. Kerwin just, he feels somewhat flat vocally, but his playing, I think, I'll deal with it because of how good of a guitar player he is. Now, number 9, gonna keep talking about Buckingham Nicks here. I got the self-titled Fleetwood Mac, not the debut, the 75 one. And I don't know. I'm at 4 stars, so I still think that it's very good, but I haven't said it yet, so I'll just get it out of the way. I do not like Stevie Nicks as a singer. She often annoys me a lot of the time, which is why the 2 worst songs on this are Rhiannon and Landslide, which I especially don't care for Landslide. The counterpoint to that is I think everything else on here is very strong. I actually think that this is the best Lindsey Buckingham ever sounded across the catalog. I think his voice is on fire on here. Tracks like Monday Morning, I think, are great. I really enjoyed Blue Letter. Over My Head is lovely. And I think World Turning in the back half is as well very strong. In a lot of ways, though, this is the precursor to Rumours. Everything that they do on this record, they would later do better on Rumours, including Stevie's vocals. Really, just for me, it's a very good record. Perfectly pleasant, but I'm missing a bit of the drama. I'm missing a bit of the nuance that comes from everybody, especially because the rhythm section, I think that they're good here, but I prefer what they were doing on the records previous this, and I especially prefer what they're doing on the records after this. So still very good, quite like it a lot. 1975's Fleetwood Mac, my number 9.
Well, my 9th record coming in at a 3.5 borderline is their 1973 album Penguin. And I like it mainly. I like the penguin mascot on the cover. That's probably my favorite thing about this record. But it genuinely does, even though it's like another transitionary record where they've got like new band members coming in to replace older ones. Danny Cohen's out. A couple of other dudes are in. Dave Walker, Bob Weston. It feels like Christine McVie's just ever so slowly stepping up a game even more. It almost at times sounds like they're just like unearthing the formula of their great like late 70s stretch. Some songs, especially in the start, remind me of Don't Stop. Another one early on kind of reminds me of Think About Me. So they're almost starting to scratch on like their classic sound. The main drawback of this album is that Dave Walker just like storms in midpoint, sings Roadrunner, and that's like a blaring Motown, like screeching Motown cover. I don't mind it so much, but it doesn't fit on the record. And the song after it is this other Dave Walker tune. It's just got this kind of Americana thing, and sounds like the band knockoff. Um, so that's yeah. Even like with Red Runner, that's my least favorite track on the album. But the second half's got like some real nice moments. It's kind of a good mixed bag in a way. There's one song, "Did You Ever Love Me" by Christine McVie, which has got like a nice calypso. It's got steel drums on it. That's really like pleasant and like cheery, and quite unique for them. But yeah, I really appreciate Bob Welch's contributions here. Really jazzy, very yacht rocky. Night Watch in particular is like nice, searing, epic song towards the end. But even stuff like Revelation, really trippy. I do love his voice. It's got that kind of nice, soft, jazzy quality to it. Reminds me a bit of Michael Franks, my other favorite singers. So yeah, Penguin, mixed bag, not quite classic, but just scratching that classic surface. I feel like it's kind of most people's bottom 5 albums, but yeah, I'm just drawn to it a bit more for some reason. Definitely the Penguin on the front.
The nice looking Penguin. So, and I like Penguin. I think it's pretty good. I don't think it's necessarily at the level of the stuff they were doing with Kerwin or the stuff they would do as a 4-piece later, but evidently we disagree on that, and that's okay. I'm just gonna keep knocking on the Buckingham Nicks door. My number 8, I got Mirage, which is actually the album that grew on me the most going into this. Had it at 3.5. I'm up to 4 stars for Mirage, and I think that it is very good. I do think there are a couple of tracks that I'm not crazy about. I think Empire State is really weird for this album. It feels like almost like a Tusk cut that got sort of scrapped and thrown on here at the last minute, because this is a much more soft pop, sort of pleasant record compared to Tusk. And it's just like, oh, I have this one leftover post punk track I was doing. It just randomly gets shoved in between 2 really good pop songs and only over you and straight back. As well, I don't love Oh Diane, and I think it's kind of an awkward closer with Wish You Were Here, although the vocal performance once again is quite good. I really like the rest of this album, though. I love Love in Store as an opener. That's another one that really stuck out to me this go around. I think Hold Me is excellent. Gypsy, it's a good song, but it's never been one of my favorite Nicks hits. And Book of Love is another very strong one. Overall, it's just a very pleasant, very enjoyable record. I kind of feel how you do about the Welch era about Buckingham Nicks, although evidently my scores are higher. I think it's very good, very pleasant. However, it doesn't have quite the magic that some of these other eras have for me. So it'd be number 8, Mirage, 4 stars. Still like it a lot.
Cool. So yeah, my number, I believe it's number 8, isn't it? Yeah, my number 8. Not forgotten about this one. It's Behind the Mask, from 1990, and I don't know. It's just a very pleasant record. I know it's like a bit of a disaster for them with Lindsay quitting, and they get these 2 real like anonymous people to replace him, Billy Burnett and Danny DeVito, or maybe someone else. I don't know. Um, uh, but yeah, at its best, it's got like tiny tinges of classic Fleetwood Mac. I think the opener is a pretty sweet. It's like maybe stuff they were doing on Tusk and Tango in the Night, but a bit more watered down, very fluffy. But I do think Save Me, like with Christine McVie, is a nice little banger, an appreciated banger. Again, it's got very fluffy pop production. I don't think Billy Burnett is terribly offensive, but he does make the group sound not quite like Fleetwood Mac anymore. Kind of really beiges up the band. But there are like some nice tracks towards the end, like Hard Feelings, which I don't know, I just really like the melody on that one and the backing vocals with the McPhee. Yeah, it's just like really kind of just a pleasant record. It's one of the more consistent sounding records. I can actually enjoy it from beginning to end, unlike some other particular albums like Say You Will, which I definitely can't. Um, yeah, so even though it's much more watered down than the classic 80s, 70s stretch, I still, yeah, got soft feelings towards this one, Behind the Mask. I think it deserves a really high free star, almost 3.5, because Save Me is really good. And the opener as well. Yeah. It's
Wild.
just really mellow, really nice.
Damn. I mean, hey, I'm glad that we found the person who enjoyed that. Are you the one that gave the Rolling Stone 4-star review for that record?
No, I would have, no, not me, I'm afraid.
Yeah, fair enough. This one hurts. Oh, I was expecting this record to be a lot higher, but no, I think I have to keep it here. Number 7 for me is going to be Tusk. I still do quite like this record. I'm still at 4 stars, but it's 20 songs. I don't really care for 4 of them. I think that's enough for me. Brown Eyes and the closing 2 numbers, Tusk and Never Forget, don't do much for me, which is really the main reason why it's down so low, because I think that the rest of this album is very strong. There's very clearly a 4.5, hell, maybe even 5-star record somewhere within Tusk, but I think it's just a little bit too much of what they were trying to do. But the cat out of the bag, Lindsey Buckingham is fucking weird here. He was listening to Television, he was in the Joy Division, and he was just getting all these post-punk influences thrown in. And mind you, he's not making post-punk, but it's about as close as you can get within the Fleetwood Mac sound, which works out very well because of just how strong of a pop writer Lindsey Buckingham is. It adds this weird contrast to his tracks that you especially get on stuff like The Ledge and What Makes You Think You're the One. But even despite that, I think that there are some great tracks on here. Stevie Nicks' highlight, of course, being Storms, which I think is an excellent track. As well, there are some other good ones. I think Angels is very good, Sisters of the Moon. I Know I'm Not Wrong, Never Make Me Cry. But there's just so many songs here. It's 20 tracks. I feel like if you could have trimmed it down to like 10, 12, you definitely can get a great album here, because for me, it's a little bit much. It kind of overstays its welcome for me. But I like how they're all sort of like twirling in different directions with Stevie and Christine. Still doing more of the pop sound, but it's a bit more elevated, a bit more extravagant. While you have Lindsey Buckingham with whatever the hell he's trying out. Still very good. I like it a lot. I'm probably talking more smack on it than I should, because I'd still listen to it any day of the week. It's literally in the CD player in my car as we speak. So it's a very good record. 4 stars, Tusk, a number 7.
Cool. Yeah, I still got Behind the Mask on the brain actually. I should mention, I think you talked about a track about it, like some smack about a track. Like this like jolly country song. I think that must have been When the Sun Goes Down.
I think
I always
so.
felt while I was listening, that sounded a bit like that. Reminded me of Dire Straits' Walk of Life. A kind of really upbeat country kind of sound with the organ. And I got to give a shout out to the title song as well, Behind the Mask. Just yeah, nice kind of chill song with Stevie.
Right.
Anyway, yeah. So my next one, yeah, my number 7th, actually coming in at 4 stars now, is the 1973 album Mystery to Me, with the glorious album cover. And that might as well be their masterpiece of the Bob Welch era. I mean, using the word masterpiece very loosely, it's the one with the highest quotient of memorable songs for me. Emerald Eyes, great opener, very catchy. This Crazy Love with McPhee, that's probably like the first pop song she wrote at that stage. That Yeah, that I can remember, that I can love, I can sing back. Really catchy. But yeah, Hypnotized is my favorite track by far. It's just got that really chilled out groove. Reminds me of Chris Rea on the beach. Just really exotic and laid back. And I love his voice. That's my favorite vocal performance of his. Um, Elsewhere, you got lots of tasty, like electric, like guitar playing, lots of solos and riffage. But if I'm being honest, the songs kind of don't jump out as much. Like in the back half, it starts to become slightly unmemorable again, like many of the songs on Bear Trees and future games. Um, and there is, yeah, perhaps one dud with Forever, which is very reggae tinged. Uh, yeah, easily the weakest song on that album. But yeah, overall, pretty solid album. Um, that I go back to mainly just on the strength of Hypnotized and Emerald Eyes.
All right, let's keep talking about it. That's my number 6, Mystery to Me. And it's going to be my last 4-star album, which means I got 5 4.5-star records for Fleetwood Mac. I struggle with this one. As you've noticed, 4 of my top 5, no, 3 of my top 5 are Bob Welch era records. I love this lineup. I think they are excellent. But this one is the one that's always kind of struggled for me because I think that it's getting a lot better. However, this is perhaps the one for me that it's almost the most disjointed between Christine and Welch and them, which this is going to sound weird. It might be because this is probably their most unified production across that era. Everything feels very one to itself. It follows a similar structure. But I feel like that kind of hurts it a bit for me because you get the Welch cuts that are sounding like the Christine cuts and the Christine cuts that are now sounding like the Welch cuts. And I don't think that the production styles really meld as well as they would on other records. Mind you, there are still some excellent tracks on here. As you mentioned, Emerald Eyes and Hypnotized, both incredible. The closer Why I think is outstanding. I love the way I feel. The city's great. Believe Me is a very good track in the 2 hole. The tracks that actually didn't do it for me are Miles Away and Somebody, which I thought were just all right this go around. I don't mind Forever. I get why people don't like it, but I think it kind of works because I feel like Welch has sort of that sort of lush, really out there musical palette to where he's able really to make the sound work. I feel, and yeah, I like this record a lot. Probably their best album cover due to the sheer absurdity of it. But just something about this one, in contrast to the other Welch era records, doesn't quite connect with me on the level of a Bear Trees or a Fleetwood Mac. Not Fleetwood Mac, a Bear Trees, a Future Games, or a Heroes Are Hard to Find. So going to be number 6, 4 stars for Mystery to Me.
Cool, nice. Yeah, even though I say like a lot of the songs in the back half don't quite jump out as much while the record's on, I always find it like really cool listen, like nice fiddly guitar soloage. Um, and yeah, a few duds in the back half. All right, so my next one, my number 6, is the 3rd album from 1969 with the Peter Green era. It's their Then Play On. That's my number 6, coming in strong at 4 stars. It's such a massive improvement compared to the first 2. Danny Cohen joining the band, yeah, just did wonders for them. Mainly noticeable in like Albatross. I think his first song with them. But yeah, Then Play On. It's just a lot more expansive, a lot more trippier and psychedelic, but in a kind of like shimmery, laid back kind of way. The textures are just so much more broader than the derivative blues they were doing before. Lots to enjoy here. The playing is a lot more looser and wild. I kind of enjoy Then Play On mainly for the playing, mainly for the kind of rhythm section and the music, as opposed to the songs. There are songwriting is split pretty much 50-50 between Cohen and Peter Green. I tend to prefer the Green songs a bit more. Rattlesnake Shape, Showbiz Blues. They're not their best crop of songs, but the textures are just wonderful to get lost in. The Cohen songs, I think the opener is this really weird kind of bongo heavy piece, and I don't really like Cohen's voice that much, so that to me it's not the strongest opener for me. But yeah, it's just one of those kind of nice instrumental records you can really get lost in. Comfortable 4 stars. I do like the crying song right near the end. That's mainly the catchiest vocal song for me. Just this nice kind of retro bluesy, super bluesy, like Delta blues cut. That's probably my favorite Cohen song he ever did, to be honest. Sounds a bit harsh. But yeah, this is the best album of the kind of early Fleetwood Mac lineup. And yeah, solid 4 stars. I still prefer all their single cuts though, and that's the thing with them Play On. I still prefer all their single cuts.
Fair.
They did around.
Fair enough. Makes sense. Still not going to talk about that one. And I want to preface this top 5 of mine, because what I'm about to talk about was my number 1 at the start of the day, which kind of just goes to show the fluctuation that these records are going to have. So at number 5 for me, I have Future Games, which I think is excellent. 4.5 stars, 4.5 stars for every record I'm going to be discussing now. I just adore the Welch era. I think he is such a captivating guitar player. He brings in such unique styles and performances to the band. You can tell he definitely helped to urge them in the pop direction, but he as well sort of brought in his sort of light, almost jazzy playing, as well with a lot of his soulful and more R&B leaning influences, and it really plays out brilliantly. And this record, probably the one that has the least of his imprint of this era, but you can definitely tell that he's there. And yeah, I think there's plenty of very, very good songs on here. I think it opens fairly well with Woman of a Thousand Years, Morning Rain, What a Shame. But this album really doesn't get going until the title track, Future Games, which I think is just mesmerizing. It's really, it sort of showcases what Welch would do greatly through the entire era, which he has these really self-contained verses that really hold to their own, but they burst out into these just gorgeous, lush choruses. It'll especially be noted on Sentimental Lady later on, which I think is just absolutely mesmerizing. I think as well, Saints of Time coming just after it is another really great one. Sometimes it's fantastic, and I love Lay It All Down and Show Me a Smile. Really, this album, it just has a certain sense of lushness and beauty to it that I find myself falling in love with. The only issue is I think that the sequencing is rough. I think all of the worst songs are the first 3 songs, and I think everything Future Games on is great. You could maybe slot like Woman of a Thousand Years and Morning Rain sometime later. And like the band said, even though I like it, what a shame could have been cut. It was only on there because the label forced them to shove out another song onto it so that it wouldn't be a 7-track album. So, I still love it a lot, 4.5 stars, but there are definitely ways it can be improved, which is the case with all of these records I'm going to talk about, I feel. So, number 5, Future Games.
Cool. My number 5 is, I'll give you a clue, it's going to be a Buckingham Nicks album, because they're the only ones left now. It's going to be Mirage from 1982. Again, real fine margins here, because there's not too much separating these in terms of like ups and downs and quality each record has. But Mirage for me is the most consistent, but the kind of flattest with the few highlights. From the 80s. It's really cleanly produced, very polished, very smooth. It's almost too smooth, like the opener, Love in Store, is just too pretty kind of opener, just a bit too smooth. And Gypsy, which I'd say is the kind of jump out hit from here, is Stevie's song. It's really just based on the same chord progression. It's quite really pleasant, but just kind of repetitive compared to the other hits of the time. It's still one of the stronger tracks on Mirage. It's just really nice sounding. The songs I enjoy the most are actually towards the end, starting with Hold Me, with Christine McVie. Just great harmonies, love the harmonies, just huge cloud of harmonies that lift it up. And Oh Diane, which is actually the 150s throwback that Fleetwood Mac do that I can actually enjoy, with Lindsey Buckingham doing his kind of Roy Orbison thing. Really short, but very catchy. Love it. And the 11th track is another Lindsey song with probably his most fearsome, like theory guitar work. Just really kind of like impressive guitar solo on the penultimate song. And Wish You Were Here, kind of really beautiful Christine McVie song. I mean, there are good songs like Dotted in the first half as well, but for me Mirage is the least kind of exciting of that classic Buckingham Nicks era. Still really good, but just highlights are not as high. So firm 4 stars.
All right. This is probably the biggest. I don't know. It's either this or it's Behind the Mask being our biggest divergence upon the list. But number 4, which would have been my number 1 if we did this a week ago, it's going to be Heroes Are Hard to Find. Down from 5 stars. It's at 4.5 now. And to clarify, you are absolutely correct. This record is a mess and a half. It is incredibly disjointed. It's incredibly bizarre. It's probably the worst balance between the Christine McVie and Bob Welch sides. The issue, I adore both of what they're doing. I think this is Welch going fully into his more jazz and soulful realm, which you definitely get on a track like Bermuda Triangle and Angel, as well as in the back have something like Born Enchanter. But McVie's songs are just delightfully pop driven. The title track, which I think is amazing. I get not being as into the horns, but I absolutely adore them as well. I think Come a Little Bit Closer is just gorgeous. You mentioned it, Silver Heels is just mesmerizing. I love the way Bob Welch sings, Paul McCartney and Etta James. That chorus just gets stuck in your head forever. I think that is really the joy of this record for me, is when Welch is getting into the pop realm that McVie does. And I think that there he just consistently knocks it out of the park. But the song that really knocked me off my feet throughout this entire journey was on here, which is one that I always loved because I used to have this at 5 stars, but one that I love even more now being the track She's Changing Me, which I think is just truly gorgeous and one of Welch's best penned songs. I don't know. There's just something about this album, this era that I just really love a ton. I think the records all sound very good as well. They're not like perfect crystal productions, but they still sound gorgeous, especially by this point. And people kind of always remark how they were a blues band and then they sort of just turned into a pop band as soon as Buckingham Nicks joined. The Welch era is very different from that. It's still pop leaning, but there's a lot more nuance going on there. And especially on a record like this, they're still getting pop success. So kind of best of both worlds for me. I get why you wouldn't be as into it. It's very all over the place, really disjointed in a lot of places, but I love it a lot. Number 4, Heroes Are Hard to Find, 4.5 stars.
Cool. All right. My number 4, also coming at 4 stars, is their re-debut album from 1975. It's the Fleetwood Mac self-titled, and man, if you compare this to all the Bob Welch, Danny Curran stuff from like before, it's like night and day. Like the superstars have arrived. It feels like just a massive jump up in so many ways, and it's packed with like a couple of timeless songs. Rhiannon, Landslide. For some reason, yeah, a lot of people I come into don't really like that song, but for me, that is just a timeless song that just makes me cry. It's so beautiful. Stevie, just yeah, one of the great vocal performances. Just yeah, packs so much emotion, even if it might, I don't know, people might find it a bit cliche these days. It's just one of those songs that always works for me. So beautiful. Rhiannon is the classic Fleetwood Mac song that I tend to get a bit more bored by, but still like the quality is evident. It's a really solid, fun record with that, yeah, feels really re-energized from the very first track, Monday Morning. Lindsey Buckingham, really exuberant, really instant poppy sensibility. Blue Letter, which is written for them, also is, yeah, of the same type of song that I really dig by them. Just really like upbeat and perky, lots of fun. There are some other nice songs on here like Crystal, slightly slower, but still, yeah, nice, pretty ballad. World Turning in the back half is kind of like quite like seething, a bit more atmospheric. It's got, yeah, some really good songs. For me, the thing that makes it a little bit less than my top three is mainly because it feels like it's not Rumours. Basically, it feels, yeah, it's pretty much setting up Rumours, but it's not Rumours. It's a record that makes me want to put on Rumours. So even though it's got like some real choice tracks on it, I just feel like I can't love this album too much because I prefer to just go for Rumours. It's still like really well done, great sound, couple of good songs that overall, yeah, maybe I just don't love nearly as much as my top three. Still really good. Firm 4 stars.
Nice. I gotta say, I think it would have been very interesting if Rumors didn't exist. I went straight from the self-titled Tusk, which, mind you, that would have been a massive leap as well. But I feel like Rumors just being there to sort of cross the bridge really did a lot for them. So, anyways, my number three going to be Then Play On by Peter Green, 4.5 stars, obviously. And I think that this actually is probably their best sequence, their best sort of put together album for me. The issue, I still think it runs slightly long. It's a little over 50 minutes. I think if you were able to trim this one down to 40 minutes, cut some of the filler, because there is a fair bit of jamming on here, which I still love it, but it's not necessary. And I'm also not the biggest fan of Without You. It's the only track that I'm not really that crazy about.
Mm.
But the rest of the album I think is outstanding. Any track that has Madge or Modge, however you say that in the title, is incredible. I think Rattlesnake Shake is a lovely cut. And I really love the way that Green and Kerwin play off one another. You have Green's more bass level blues sort of thought process. Mind you, his playing, especially because you can tell whenever it's his tracks, it's mostly his guitar work. It's just sensational. I did his solo work a long time ago. Well, not a long time ago, earlier on, whenever this channel started. And that stuff is also very good as well. It probably placed fairly decently within the Fleetwood Mac ranking, but you can definitely tell that he's just going to break off and be this incredible player front to back. But yeah, this album I think just collectively has so many good songs. Opening with "Coming Your Way" is great. I love "Closing My Eyes." "Showbiz Blues" is lovely. "Underway" is great. Near the back half, "My Dream" and "Before the Beginning" are very good. For me, it's probably the most consistently solid Fleetwood Mac record. It doesn't really have any divots or turns that I think really set it apart. It's just kind of, I don't love Kerwin as much as a singer compared to other singers in the band. And I think that this one as well, you can tell the different points. You can tell a Kerwin track from a Kerwin track. You can tell a green track from a green track. And that's good, but I feel like I wish that they homogenized just ever so slightly better. So number 3, then play on 4.5. Love it.
Nice. Yeah, the jamming bits are actually yeah, my favorite on that record by far. And I was listening to some live albums of theirs from the same era. They have this box set of their Boston shows where they like expand like Rattlesnake Shake to like 25 minutes. It's actually really engaging all the way through. They're just it's just insane, like great jam band at that time. So yeah, worth checking out. My number 3, going to the 80s, is Tango in the Night from 87. For me, that's a really high 4-star, almost, but not quite 4.5 star. For me, it has a really magical, like, unique sound to it. Some people say the production's like a complete botch 80s job, but I find it really unique, very shimmery. It's really like recorded everything at like quarter speed and like sped it up to get that kind of shimmery high gloss sound to it. For me, compared to Mirage, Tango in the Night just has stunning highlights for me. Like Big Love, just a fantastic exotic opener. Love the guitar sounds and the vocals with the kind of Fairlight answer back and forth. Just like really different and yeah, mystical. Little Lies is like a song like I grew up with, like from very young. It's just a like a banging chorus. Love that sound. Everywhere, it was everywhere a couple of years ago. It felt because it's always used on adverts. But even so, that's still like just like a pop gem from McVie, Christine McVie. Just yeah, great magical sounding highlights. Caroline is just a bang, like a huge chorus from Lindsay, just like stadium sized, really catchy, huge. And Seven Wonders with Stevie, one of the few songs she's actually bothered to turn up on because she was only in the recording process for about a week, is yeah, also another good song. Yeah, it's kind of uneven, like especially in the back half, it gets a bit more uneven. But one song I absolutely love is right at the end. It's You and I, Part 2. It's just this seemingly throwaway pop song that's just completely irrepressible and catchy for me. I can't get it out of my head. It's got these like twinkling melodies and these really like cheesy like drum machines in it. But I like Lindsay's vocal in it. It's just a real like guilty pleasure for me. I can't get enough of that song. It's actually my favorite on the album, along with Little Lies. Yeah, I just loved it. It's such a poppy album with like severe highs, some severe lows. I think the very penultimate song, When Will I See You Again, I think with Stevie, is a complete botch job in terms of production. Really mangled kind of vocal bits of a performance stitched together. But yeah, even then, it's still got that kind of 80s vibe that I just love. I love that kind of sugary, like hyper poppy 80s vibe. So this was always gonna like be above their 1975 and Mirage for me. Love the highlights on this too much. High 4 stars. My number 3.
Nice, nice. This is where it gets tough. These top 2, I like them a lot. But you know me and you've seen how this has gone. So I'll just get it out of the way. Very, very close. But my number 2 is going to be Rumours. Mind you, I love it a lot. 4.5 stars. I was honestly almost tempted to bump it, but I didn't quite get around to doing it. And yeah, I mean, going strictly from like a track for track basis, this is probably their best record. The production is sublime and pretty much everything about it just works brilliantly. I just simply prefer the Welch era as how they function together, how they operate. So it's just kind of a preference in how I prefer my group of the band. I mean, that's absolutely not a dig on Rumors. Pretty much everything about it's perfect. I mean, Secondhand News is outstanding. Dreams, of course, is amazing. Never Going Back Again, I think, works very well. I really loved Don't Stop and Go Your Own Way. Songbird, of course, is incredible. And then you have The Chain. The downside is now where I talk about sequencing. I think this album is really front loaded in a lot of ways. I think that the first 7 tracks are very clearly the best 7 tracks on Rumors. I think You Make Loving Fun, I Don't Want to Know, Oh Daddy, Gold Dust Woman. I think they're all good. I like them all a fair bit. But for me, it's so blatantly obvious that like the first 2/3 of the album is better than that last third of it. And it's like if you maybe would have just interspersed a couple of those songs, like throw The Chain a little bit later and maybe close out with Songbird, I think could be gorgeous. Go Your Own Way maybe a little bit later on. And I think that you got a 5-star masterpiece. But I think that there is just some ever so slight sequencing issues on here for me. Which, mind you, adding in Silver Springs wouldn't have done much because that's basically just a Stevie solo song. But I love this record a lot still. 4.5, absolutely outstanding. I just simply think that there are some very slight tweaks I would make to this to make it slightly better. As it stands, it's a bit front loaded for me. Number 2, we're going to be Rumors, 4.5 stars. All but a lot.
Very cool. All right. All right, my number 2, coming in at 4.5 stars, is going to be Tusk. So it's not Rumours, it's going to be Tusk. Their double album from 1979. Yeah, I love this album. It's just a really interesting thing to do after you make perhaps one of the like greatest selling albums of all time. Just go for a big double album where each songwriter is doing their own thing. They're taking lots of risks on this one. Lindsey Buckingham's just doing a lot of lo-fi experimental pop, which is often really good. Christine McVie pretty much continuing what she's doing on Rumours, and Stevie Nicks has got a couple of songs that kind of look forward into the 80s, and occasionally keeping up with the habits of Rumours. Yeah, it's just one of those double albums where I love every song on it. There's very few songs that I feel like misplaced or dead weight to me. It's my favorite Christine McVie album. I love pretty much all of her contributions here over and over. It's just such an incredible opener. It's not like an exciting, like energetic opener, but it's really soft and caressing and soulful. And then you go straight into the kind of the weirdness to the ledge, the first of the weird Lindsey Buckingham tunes. It's just a great mix of stuff. I love the sequencing. I love the fact that you get a weird song and then you get like a nice soft ballad with a woman's touch on it. In terms of like highlights, like Stevie's Sarah sticks out. Love the kind of 80s piano on it. Sisters of the Moon, nice simmering, almost heavy rock tune for this album. Lindsey, That's All For Everyone, such incredible dreamy floaty harmonies. Walk a Thin Line right near the end, also got that same dreamy vibe. Tusk is one of the craziest tunes they've done. That's one of the other like maybe genuine hits from here with the marching band. That's one of my favorite songs they've ever done. So crazy. Love the out of control drum solo in the middle. Oh yeah, Brown Eyes with Christine McVie. Oh, it's so beautiful. Really, really kind of dark. Makes me cry. Just incredible vibe on that song. Even Stevie, like near the end, Beautiful Child, that also brings me to tears. It's such a yeah, emotional tune. Oh man, I love there's so much on this album to enjoy, even if it's not got the thing that really keeps it off #1 spot. It doesn't have like the same heavy hitter tunes as Rumours has, but every tune on here, I still think it's like a 95% for me. It's still really good, tons to enjoy. I love the sound. I love the lo-fi. I love the high quality studio. Apparently, it was the most expensive album recorded at the time, and doesn't show on like half the songs, but the lo-fi ones. But yeah, throughout, it's just fantastic for me. Love Tusk. Number two by quite a margin, 4.5.
All right. I like Tusk a lot too. It's not quite there for me. I just inherently have that double album curse where I just
Would
hate
you actually
things.
slim it down to a single?
Probably because I think that you can definitely, even though I like a lot of the songs, you can definitely get that down to like 12, even 14 tracks. And I think just have a much tighter, more cohesive listening experience is kind of where I'm at with it.
There's one song on it that maybe kind of overstays. It's Angel with Stevie, because that's just maybe the most ordinary sounding of kind of rock tune on it. But even if I'm in the right mood, I can still like dig it a lot.
Yeah. That's why I
That's
should
the
probably, sorry.
yeah, that's the only. I wouldn't really cut any of the songs myself.
Gotcha. I could definitely do with a re-listen to that one, as I know I just did, but I feel like that's one where you need to really sink a lot of time into it to really pick out all the different layers and whatnot.
Definitely.
But my number one, you all know me, you knew where this was going. Didn't really think this was going to be number one. I had a couple of other ones pegged, but I just this go around putting Bare Trees as my winner, which I just love this era of the band so much. I think that the way that Welch and Kerwin play off one another with their guitar playing is outstanding. I think that the rhythm section across this point is not the best that they would ever get, because I think that Rumors is their peak, but I still think that they're excellent across it. Christine sounds gorgeous, with this probably being my favorite batch of Christine songs. I love her rocking bluesier Homeward Bound. I think that Spare Me a Little of Your Love is just tremendous as well. Just those two songs alone are outstanding. And then the Kerwin songs, Child of Mine, I think is a very good rocking opener. I love the title track. I think that that's very good. Danish Chant, it's good. It's fine. I like it. But the tracks that really pull it all together is Dust, which I think is tremendous. Basically the closer of the album, but you have Thoughts on a Gray Day, which I think works fine, but I don't love it. But then you have Bob Welch's songs, which I think are just some of the best that have been penned in general. The Ghost is truly tremendous, probably the best example of the verses sitting in their own sort of occupied space where they have this slight groove to them and really great rhythm. But then you get into this very lush and ornate chorus that just really explodes to you, and I adore it. As well, you have, which I think is maybe his best song ever, with Sentimental Lady, which just the way that the chorus explodes on there with the beautifully performed vocal verses as well. It's really tremendous to me. And I don't think that it's really overblown like he would later do on his solo recording, which would become a hit for him, which I'm happy that he got a solo hit. But I think that the version on this record is truly just outstanding. For me, it's just the best blending of the earlier blues style, the sort of more pop leaning stuff that they would do, and really the weirder, more, I don't want to say progressive, but the more sort of thoughtfully crafted music. Not to say that Rumors isn't an immaculate performance of craft, but I think that these maybe are a bit more varied, is maybe how I would describe it. I just love the record a lot. My number one, Bare Trees. Don't quite get to 5 stars. I'm still at 4.5. But I mean, hell, 5 4.5s and what, 5 more 4s? I love the band a lot. Almost guaranteed to be in my top 25 at this point in time. Number one, Bare Trees, 4.5 stars.
Sorry, is that 25 of all time?
I think so. Our
Wow.
artist, not album.
Oh, yeah, I see.
Yeah.
What you meant, Bare Trees.
No, I have a. Oh, sure. We'll slide that in there. We'll have a random 4.5 in the sea of fives. No, no. But yeah, I love them a lot. I don't think that they have an album in my top 100 per se, but definitely if I was doing a songs list, I think they might have like 10. So
Cool. So yeah, afraid yeah, no surprises for my number one. It's going to be Rumours. It's just hard to deny as a number one album. It's fantastic. Hits on it are timeless. That it's almost like Thriller. Like every song on it practically is a diamond, a hit, a stunner. Um, it just like everything on their 75 album. This one just does better. Like Secondhand News, it's the same style kind of opener as Monday Morning with Lindsay on vocals. It's just right out the gate, very exciting, so poppy. It really just puts me in a good mood. But yeah, the hits like Dreams, like You Make Loving Fun in particular is might actually be my favorite of the hits, just because of the like gorgeous harmonies and the exquisite kind of heartbreak and kind of like melancholy in them. Uh, all the whilst being like a super like upbeat disco number. The Chain is they're one like all out greatest ensemble performance where everyone gets to show off a little bit. And for me, anyways, the Formula One theme in this country, with the kind of end bass riff, um, Go Your Own Way. I thought I'd get sick of these songs because how often they're played on the radio, but I don't because they're just fantastic. Even Go Your Own Way, I'm still like playing on my playlists like throughout the week. Um, Don't Stop, maybe like the one of the mega hits that gets older for me a bit quicker. Um, but that's still like almost irrepressible. Um, in terms of like the other songs that don't get talked about as much, I Don't Want to Know in the back half is this fun duet with Stevie and Lindsay. It's really chirpy, really uplifting. Love that kind of style of songwriting. Um, um, I have to say, Songbird is maybe a bit too pretty for me. It doesn't resonate as much. Kind of McPhee is one of my lesser favorite McPhee songs from that era, to be honest, just relatively speaking. And the last two songs, to be fair, are not quite as exciting as the other songs on here. Oh Daddy, in particular, is a bit less memorable, whereas Gold Dust Woman is very darker, much darker sounding. Still quality, but not as high, not as memorable as the tracks in the first half. So you could argue that it's slightly patchy, um, simply because the like timeless songs are so good. But yeah, even so, it's still like a really good, amazing sounding album from start to finish. Even if, like to be nitpicky, three of the songs here aren't my favorite. Um, yeah, I mean, it's Rumours. There's not much else to say about it. It's a fantastic sounding album, loaded with like timeless, amazing hits, and it's really hard to not be my number one. Just fantastic record that will always get talked about.
as it should. I mean, it's not my number one just simply due to preference, but if I had to pick like the objective record, hell, maybe even just the objective 70s pop album, I feel like it's hard to do better than Rumors because it just does everything that you want from the band.
Mm.
That being said, any closing remarks on this group, or do we think there's a lot to be said about Fleetwood Mac? So
Yeah, I mean, not really. They're just they're a great group, mainly for their Peter Green and Buckingham Nicks era. Um, but even so, they're still like pretty enjoyable, I find anyway. Nearly from start to finish. The last two records are quite rough. But yeah, just amazing band, great history. And I mean, yeah, solid albums even during their kind of less popular years earlier on. I don't know about like, yeah, they've got to be a shoe in for my top 20, top 50 bands certainly anyway. Maybe even top 25. I need to really kind of iron out that list.
Me too, if I'm being honest. It could just be also we just listen to all these records too, so it's like fresh in the mind, you know.
Mm.
But yeah, just excellent pop craft throughout all of the albums, brilliant performances. Really, you could say McVie and Fleetwood are some of the most underrated rhythm sections just out there. And with all the people that are in that band, the fact that they're the two that stay consistent and are consistently great throughout is really, really just a great thing. So
I have to say, yeah, it's a shame that like Peter Green maybe didn't have like one better showcase album, because that's another factor of early, yeah, Fleetwood Mac anyways, the singles, like Albatross and Black Women, which I had like shoed into my top 10 personal Fleetwood Mac songs, along with Oh Well. Yeah, it's kind of a shame that that kind of aspect of that group isn't really reflected in the early albums.
I will say I love Peter Green as a player. I think that he has some great stuff across the Fleetwood Mac records, but I honestly feel like his best playing comes through on his solo records, especially the
Mm.
second one, In the Skies. I think that record's very strong. He has some great licks there. That being said, though, that was Fleetwood Mac's 17 records. Pretty solid discussion here. Yeah, we had some slight divergences on their 70 to 74 records, but I mean, hey, gotta have some divergence somewhere. Had a lot of fun, and I hope that you all enjoyed this.
Cool, thank you.